I guess I should start by introducing myself. I'm Alyssa, I'm 30, and I completely ruined my life over a stupid phone. Not that it was entirely my fault. I mean, who texts that much during a car ride with their wife? But I'm getting ahead of myself. It all went down last Thursday. Kevin had this fancy work dinner thing he just had to attend, even though we were supposed to have date night. He's been pulling this a lot lately, ever since he got that promotion. "It's just temporary, babe," he kept saying. "Once I get settled in the new role." Yeah, right. 3 months of canceled plans and constant notifications said otherwise. So there we were, driving to this dinner I didn't even want to go to, and his phone wouldn't stop buzzing, like every 2 minutes. Ding, ding. He kept glancing at it while driving, which was dangerous enough, but what really got me was how he'd angle it away from me every single time. Who does that unless they're hiding something? I tried playing it cool at first. Popular tonight, huh? I said it all casual, but inside I was screaming. He just shrugged it off with this annoying little laugh. "Just work stuff, you know how it is." Except I didn't know, because he never actually told me anything anymore. The notifications kept coming, and I watched him smile at one of them. Actually smile. When was the last time he smiled at anything I said? I started thinking about all those late nights at the office, all those work emergencies that kept him out until who knows when. The way he'd been password locking his phone lately when he used to just leave it lying around. "Who's texting you?" I finally asked straight up. The car felt so tight suddenly, like I couldn't breathe. Kevin rolled his eyes, actually rolled his eyes at me, like I was some paranoid crazy person. "It's just the team coordinating about tonight. Why are you always like this?" "Always like what?" "Always wanting to know why my husband is acting shady? Always wondering why he's pulling away?" The next notification came through, and he reached for the phone again, tilting it away from me like I was some stranger trying to peek at his private stuff. Something in me just snapped. I don't know if it was the way he dismissed me, or all those notifications, or just months of feeling like I was losing him. But when he picked up that phone again, I reached for it. I just wanted to see. Just one look to prove I wasn't crazy. I didn't mean to grab the wheel. I swear I didn't. I was just trying to get the phone, but he jerked away and my hand. Everything after that happened so fast. The screech of tires, Kevin yelling, the world spinning like one of those crazy carnival rides, then the crash, oh God, the crash. Metal crunching, glass everywhere. The airbag felt like a punch to the face. When everything finally stopped moving, I looked over at Kevin and I'll never forget how still he was. Blood running down his face, not moving. I remember screaming his name, shaking him, begging him to wake up. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get my phone out to call 911. All I could think was, "Please be okay, please be okay." But there was this tiny voice in the back of my head still wondering who had been texting him. How messed up is that? My husband was unconscious and bleeding, and part of me was still wondering if he was cheating on me. I had no idea then that this was just the beginning. That in a few hours my whole life would start unraveling because of one stupid impulse, one moment of losing control. But looking back now, sitting here trying to explain myself, I still can't help but think, if he'd just shown me the phone, none of this would have happened. The first responders seemed to take forever, but the police told me later it was only 12 minutes. 12 minutes of watching Kevin's blood drip onto his white dress shirt. 12 minutes of my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone to call his mom. 12 minutes of strangers stopping to help, their faces all concerned, until they heard me mumbling about the phone. Then their looks changed. I saw it, like they were putting it together. I wasn't thinking straight. I kept trying to reach for Kevin's phone in his cup holder, even while this off-duty nurse was telling me not to move him. "He was texting," I kept saying. He shouldn't have been texting. The nurse just gave me this look and moved to block me from the driver's side, like I was some kind of threat. When the ambulance finally came, I tried to climb in with him, but they wouldn't let me. Some officer, Rodriguez or Roberts, something with an R, pulled me aside. He seemed nice at first, asking if I was okay, if I needed medical attention. Then the questions started getting weird. "Can you tell me what led to the accident? Had you and your husband been arguing?" Did you intentionally try to take control of the vehicle? What? No. I remember being so offended. Kevin was texting while driving. He was being reckless. I just wanted to see who was so important that he had to risk our lives over it. Even I heard how that sounded as soon as it came out. The officer's face changed, just slightly. But enough. He started writing everything down after that. They let me go home that night, but not before taking all my information and telling me to stay available for questions. Like I was going to run off somewhere while Kevin was in the hospital. I didn't even know if he was alive at that point. The EMTs had rushed him off so fast, and nobody would tell me anything because I wasn't immediate family. As if being his wife of 4 years meant nothing. I tried calling Kevin's phone from my Uber home. Over and over. Straight to voicemail, every time. His mom wasn't answering either, which I knew was on purpose. She'd never liked me, always said I was too much for her precious son. Now she probably had her chance to turn him against me for good. The house felt huge and empty when I got home. Kevin's coffee mug was still in the sink from that morning. His gym shoes by the door where I always told him not to leave them. Everything looked so normal, like any other night. Except my husband was in the hospital, and I couldn't get the sound of crunching metal out of my head. I started going through old texts on my phone, screenshots I'd taken of suspicious messages I'd seen pop up on his screen over the past few months. Looking at them now, they seemed so innocent. Running late, sorry. Can you check that report? Thanks for your help today. But there were so many from this one woman, Rachel, his new team lead. Always with those stupid emojis. Who uses that many smiley faces with their married male coworker? Around 3 a.m., Kevin's mom finally texted back. He's stable. Don't come to the hospital, we'll be in touch. That's when I started crying for the first time since the crash. Not just crying, ugly sobbing into his pillow that still smelled like his shampoo. What if I'd really hurt him? What if he never forgave me? What if he'd actually been cheating and now I'd never know the truth? I must have fallen asleep eventually because I woke up to pounding on the door. More cops. Different ones this time. They had questions about my history of emotional incidents at Kevin's work functions. Apparently his mom had been busy talking. I tried explaining about the Christmas party, how I'd only confronted that intern because she was obviously flirting with Kevin, but they just kept writing things down in their little notebooks. I should have known then that this was just the beginning, that my whole life was about to become a series of explanations nobody wanted to hear. But I was still convinced that once Kevin woke up, once I could just talk to him, everything would be okay. I had no idea he'd never look at me the same way again. The hospital waiting room was like some kind of twisted family reunion. Kevin's mom held court in the corner, whispering to relatives and shooting me these looks like I was some kind of murderer. His sister kept asking the nurses if they could keep that woman away from her brother's room. That woman. Like I wasn't even human anymore. Like I hadn't spent the last 4 years of my life loving their precious Kevin. The doctor finally came out around noon, and I swear Kevin's mom tried to block me from hearing the update. But I heard enough. Multiple fractures. Possible nerve damage in his right arm. Words like long-term rehabilitation and may not regain full mobility. His mom started sobbing dramatically, like she was auditioning for some soap opera. He'll never work again, she wailed. She's ruined his life. She probably planned this. I lost it. Planned what? To wreck our car? To put my husband in the hospital? Are you insane? Security had to separate us. Kevin's sister filmed the whole thing on her phone, probably for evidence or something. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. I just needed to see him. I waited until shift change, when Kevin's mom finally left to freshen up. The new nurse didn't know about all the drama, so when I said I was his wife, she just waved me through. Kevin was sleeping, all hooked up to machines, his arm in this massive cast. He looked so pale, so unlike my Kevin. But his phone was right there on the little table, plugged in and charging. I know how bad this sounds. I know. My husband was lying there broken because of me, and all I could think about was checking his phone. But I had to know. All those notifications, all that secrecy, there had to be a reason. The passcode was still our anniversary, at least he hadn't changed that, and my hands were shaking as I opened his messages. Nothing. Hours of scrolling through boring work conversations. Rachel's texts were all project deadlines and client meeting updates. The most personal thing I could find was her asking if he wanted coffee when she made a Starbucks run. All those notifications that night. A group chat about presentation slides for the dinner we never made it to. I felt sick. Not just regular sick, the kind of sick that comes with realizing you've ruined everything over nothing. I was still staring at his phone when I heard Kevin's voice, rough and tired. "Really, Alyssa? Even now?" The look in his eyes, I'd never seen him look at me like that before. Not even during our worst fights. It wasn't anger or even disappointment. It was like he was seeing me for the first time and he didn't recognize what he was looking at. I thought, I couldn't even finish the sentence. What could I say? That I'd been so convinced he was cheating that I'd rather risk our lives than trust him? That I'd rather believe he was a liar than believe I was wrong? "Get out." His voice was quiet but firm. When I didn't move, he pressed the call button for the nurse. "Get out and don't come back. My lawyer will contact you." "Lawyer? Kevin, please, I'm sorry. I was just worried." "You were just controlling." He cut me off. Like always. Like at every party, every work event, every time I talk to any woman who isn't you. "I'm done, Alyssa. I'm done walking on eggshells. I'm done with the accusations. And I'm done pretending this is normal." The nurse came in then, saw Kevin's monitors going crazy, and practically shoved me out of the room. His mom was coming down the hall with 2 coffee cups, probably for her and his sister. When she saw me, she dropped them both. "What did you do?" she screamed. "What did you do to him now?" I ran. Past the nurse's station, past security, all the way to my car. My phone was blowing up with texts from Kevin's family, calling me every name in the book. Somewhere in the middle of it all was a message from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Detective Marshall. We need you to come down to the station. Mr. Turner has decided to press charges." They came for me the next morning. 2 officers, right at my front door while I was still in my pajamas. My neighbors all came out to watch. Janet from across the street didn't even try to hide that she was recording the whole thing on her phone. The walk from my front door to the police car felt like a mile long. I kept thinking about all those true crime shows I used to watch, never imagining I'd be the one in handcuffs. The booking process was humiliating. Fingerprints, mugshot. They took my jewelry, even my wedding ring. The charge was reckless endangerment with a vehicle. The detective said I was lucky it wasn't attempted murder, which is apparently what Kevin's mom had been pushing for. Like I'd actually tried to kill my own husband. I spent that night in a holding cell, trying to convince myself this wasn't really happening. The girl in the cell next to me was in for shoplifting at Target. She kept asking what I was in for. But how do you explain something like this? "Oh, I just grabbed the steering wheel while my husband was driving because I thought he was texting his coworker too much." It sounds insane even in my head. My parents scraped together the bail money the next morning. The look on my dad's face when he saw me in that orange jumpsuit, I'd never seen him so disappointed. Mom was crying, but not the loud, dramatic way Kevin's mom does. Just quiet tears while she filled out the paperwork. "We'll figure this out, sweetie," she kept saying, but her voice shook every time. By the time I got home, the whole thing had exploded online. Someone from Kevin's family had posted about it in our town's Facebook group, you know, the one where all the drama happens. The comments were brutal. People I'd known for years, neighbors I'd had over for barbecues, all calling me crazy, unstable, psychotic. A few people tried defending me at first, but then Kevin's sister posted about the previous incidents. The Christmas party. The time I confronted his female client at that restaurant. The angry emails I'd sent to his assistant last year when she scheduled a business dinner without telling me. It all looked so bad when you lined it up like that. My boss called that afternoon. "Maybe take some time off," she suggested, like I had a choice. My work email was already disabled. 3 years at that company, and they couldn't get rid of me fast enough. Can't have a violent offender handling client accounts, I guess. Rachel, Kevin's coworker, the one I'd been so suspicious of, posted this long status about supporting domestic violence victims regardless of gender. She didn't name names, but everyone knew. The comments were full of people from Kevin's office sharing stories about times I'd made them uncomfortable or seemed unstable. Things I barely remembered or had totally different versions of in my head. I tried posting my side of the story. Big mistake. Kevin's mom went on this huge rant about how I was trying to profit from almost killing her son. She started this rumor that I'd been after Kevin's life insurance money, that the whole thing was premeditated. Some people actually believed her. Like I'd intentionally crash a car I was also in, while not wearing a seatbelt? Make it make sense. My sister finally came over that night, not to support me, to talk some sense into me. She scrolled through all the social media stuff, showing me screenshots people had saved of my erratic behavior over the years, posts where I'd vented about Kevin working late, comments I'd left on his female coworkers' photos, even my own angry status updates that I'd deleted but people had saved. "This isn't normal, Alyssa," she kept saying. "This isn't how healthy people act. When's the last time you talked to your therapist?" "I don't need a therapist," I snapped. "I need everyone to stop acting like I'm some kind of monster. Kevin was being shady, he was hiding his phone. He was planning your anniversary surprise, you idiot." That shut me up. She pulled up an email chain Kevin had forwarded her weeks ago. Him coordinating with his team to cover for him while he planned this whole romantic getaway. Rachel had been helping him make dinner reservations and arrange time off. All those notifications. The team group chat, trying to help him pull it off. I threw up right there on my sister's shoes. My court-appointed lawyer didn't sugarcoat anything. "They have a strong case," she said, shuffling through the pile of evidence on her desk. Police reports, witness statements, social media posts, screenshots. My whole life laid out like some kind of criminal conspiracy. Your history of controlling behavior, the documented incidents at Mr. Turner's workplace, the fact that multiple witnesses heard you admit to grabbing the wheel. I tried interrupting, but he was texting while driving. She just gave me this look. The same look my sister had given me. The same look everyone seemed to be giving me lately. "Alyssa, he has permanent nerve damage in his right arm. His career as a software developer is effectively over. He'll need multiple surgeries and years of physical therapy, and there's no guarantee he'll regain full function. A texting while driving ticket isn't exactly comparable." The preliminary hearing was a nightmare. I had to sit there while the prosecutor painted this picture of me as some crazy, controlling wife who'd rather kill her husband than lose control of him. They had statements from Kevin's coworkers, screenshots of my deleted social media rants, even security footage from that Christmas party incident. It all looked so much worse from the outside. Kevin testified from a wheelchair, his arm still in that massive cast. He wouldn't even look at me, just stared straight ahead while he described our marriage deteriorating due to my increasing paranoia and controlling tendencies. He talked about walking on eggshells, about how he'd started warning new female employees about me, about how he'd been planning to suggest marriage counseling before the accident. "And now?" the prosecutor asked. "Now I just want a divorce and a restraining order." His mother testified about all the times she'd seen me manipulate and isolate Kevin. The Christmas party. The time I showed up at his office unannounced because he wasn't answering texts. The angry voicemails I'd left when he worked late. His sister played the video of my hospital waiting room meltdown. Old friends came forward with stories I barely remembered, or remembered completely differently. My lawyer tried to argue for a plea deal, but the prosecutor wasn't having it. "Your client shows no real remorse," she told my lawyer right in front of me. "She's still trying to justify her actions, still trying to shift blame to the victim. Will be seeking the maximum penalty." I started crying then, really crying. Not the pretty kind either. I never meant to hurt him. I just wanted to see his phone. It was an accident. "An accident," the prosecutor repeated slowly. "That was the culmination of years of controlling and abusive behavior. An accident that left a man permanently disabled. An accident that occurred because you chose to grab the wheel of a moving vehicle rather than trust your husband. That kind of accident, Mrs. Turner, is exactly why these laws exist. Maximum sentence could mean actual prison time. Not jail. Prison. Plus fines, mandatory counseling, a permanent criminal record. My lawyer said that with my pattern of behavior and Kevin's injuries, the judge was likely to make an example of me. The real kicker? Kevin's long-term disability insurance denied his claim because the injury was caused by domestic violence. His medical bills are astronomical, and workers' comp only covers so much. His mom's latest Facebook rant was all about how I'd ruined him financially too, like I'd planned any of this. My parents remortgaged their house to hire a better lawyer, but even he says the best we can hope for is a slightly reduced sentence. If you'd shown genuine remorse from the beginning, he said, we'd have more options. But your initial statements to police, your social media posts, your behavior at the hospital, it all shows a pattern of deflecting blame and minimizing your actions. I am remorseful, I insisted. I feel terrible. About the consequences, he corrected. You feel terrible about the consequences. But have you truly accepted responsibility for your actions? Not just the accident, but the years of controlling behavior that led to it? I didn't have an answer for that. Still don't, really. The mandatory therapy sessions are the worst part. Not because of the therapy itself. Maria, my therapist, is actually pretty nice. It's because she makes me look at everything I did, every single incident, as they're calling them now, and explain my thinking. And when I hear it out loud, well, it sounds crazy. Even to me, like the Christmas party. In my head, that intern was obviously flirting with Kevin, touching his arm and laughing too loud at his jokes. But when Maria made me really break it down, all I could describe was a 22-year-old kid asking her team lead work questions at a company party. The seductive touching was her tapping his shoulder to get his attention in a noisy room. I'm pretty sure she quit because of me. Kevin's divorce papers came while I was in therapy. Maria watched me read them, probably taking notes on my reaction. He wants a clean break, no alimony, just wants me to help with his medical bills. His lawyer included photos of his arm, all the surgery scars and nerve damage diagrams. He may never code again. The thing he loved most, the career he built for himself, gone because I couldn't trust him for one car ride. I try to tell myself that if he'd just been more open with his phone, if he hadn't acted so suspicious about those texts, none of this would have happened. But even as I'm thinking it, I can hear how wrong it sounds. Normal people don't grab steering wheels. Normal people don't stalk their husband's coworkers on social media at 3 a.m. Normal people don't keep screenshots of every female interaction their partner has. The final hearing is next week. My lawyer says to expect 18 months minimum, probably in state prison. Plus 5 years probation, mandatory counseling, anger management classes. I'll have a felony record. No one will hire me. My parents are talking about me moving back home after I serve my time. God, I can barely say it out loud. Everyone keeps asking if I've learned my lesson, if I understand what I did wrong. The truth? I know I messed up. I know grabbing that wheel was the worst decision of my life. I know I should have trusted Kevin, should have believed in him, should have been secure enough in our marriage to not need constant proof of his faithfulness. But there's still this tiny voice in my head that whispers, if he'd just shown me his phone right away, if he hadn't been so secretive about a stupid anniversary surprise, if he'd been more understanding of my fears. And I guess that's why I'm going to prison. Because even now, even after everything, I still can't fully admit that this was all my fault. Kevin's mom was right about one thing. I did ruin his life. Not because I was trying to kill him or for insurance money or any of the crazy theories she posted online. I ruined it because I couldn't control my own insecurities, because I let jealousy and paranoia drive every decision until it finally drove us right into that concrete barrier. The worst part? The last text on his phone that night? The one that made him smile? It was a confirmation for my anniversary gift. A trip to that beach where we had our first date. He'd been planning it for months, getting his whole team to help keep it secret. And now, instead of a beach vacation, he's getting daily physical therapy and a divorce. Instead of an anniversary surprise, he got a permanently damaged arm and PTSD. Instead of a loving wife, he got a cautionary tale. So yeah, I'm that wife, the one who grabbed the wheel, the one who ruined everything over a phone. And now I've got 18 months in a cell to think about how I could have just asked for couples counseling instead.